Minutes in. We got about 10 people on. Let's get started. So good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're located throughout the globe. My name is Andrew. I am the CMO here at Interlock and excited for you to join our space today on how Interlock is building on Aleph Zero to create a safer internet. And today we're going to go over the problem in cybersecurity and Web3 as it relates to security, why we're using blockchain to solve the problem, specifically what we're building and why we chose Aleph Zero. And we'll go over some new product announcements and product details about our new beta security extension. And also just to get to know each other, as this is a joint community call, I got Raphael and Daniel here from the Aleph Zero team that are both phenomenal community managers over there. And I got my teammates, Rick, who's been a longtime cybersecurity expert and cybersecurity professional, who's a co-founder here at Interlock, along with Nick, who's our lead developer. So Raphael, you want to say hello to everyone?
Hey everyone, I'm very happy to be here today, and we are also very excited to know the next steps for Interlock and how they're gonna solve a lot of the issues that we see happening in the space. So we are very happy to be here today as well.
Great. So I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Rick. And Rick, what do you believe are the top security problems for crypto and Web3 users?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And also, before I get started into that, I just want to say hi to everybody and introduce myself. You told them a little bit about me, but I want to go just 2 seconds into it first before we get started, just so everyone knows. Like Andrew said, I've been in security for a long time, over 15 years at this point, and building startups since 2013, building enterprise security products, and that evolved into me realizing that the security issues that I saw in Web 2, things like phishing, things like social engineering. And to be clear, I was a red team hacker. So what I did was spend a lot of time doing those very attacks on enterprises and other companies that needed to test their own resilience from a security perspective. So those issues that I saw that plagued those companies, unfortunately, are even worse in Web3. I was hoping kind of when all of these, after Bitcoin launched and after ecosystems started to get built, that Web3 would have a different perspective on security. And to be clear, it does. We all care a little bit more. We all understand the implications a little bit more. But the problems are even worse. And I think it's because access to assets, i.e. your wallet, your NFTs, whatever it may be, are all right in front of the hacker versus being behind a few layers or behind a bank account or something like that when you're talking about Web 2. So that leads kind of right into your question there. But realistically, we started building in the Web3 space at Interlock to solve those problems and use Web3 and blockchain to start doing something different, to move away from the traditional ways that have failed Web 2 for 25 plus years at this point. But the big problems that both Web 2 and Web 3 are facing really still revolve around that. It's people being tricked into handing over the keys to their wallet, or clicking a phishing link and giving away their password, or as of recently too, more wallet drainers, people signing malicious smart contracts that probably weren't intentional. They didn't mean to, but social engineers, hackers are just very good at convincing people that they need to do this right now to not miss out on the next best thing. So the attacks that plague everyone the worst are still focused around that, tricking someone into doing something that gets some value back to the hacker.
And why do you think Web2 security solutions haven't been able to solve this problem? And just to give everyone a little bit of background on the global spend on cybersecurity software from an enterprise perspective, so large businesses buying software every year is around 90 billion, and consumers spend around 8 billion a year. So that's almost 100 billion combined spend on security, and largely these issues around social engineering and phishing have not been solved yet. And Rick, why do you think that is?
In my opinion, it's because, and I think it's kind of the ethos of our company, it's because there's no marriage between the enterprises and the individuals. There's a lot, like you said, a lot of money spent on both sides, but at the same time, there's no communication, there's no cross channeling, and then enterprises in Web 2 that build cybersecurity solutions often don't work together, which from a business perspective, yeah, obviously they're not working together. They have profits to make. They can't be embed with their own competitors. However, in Web3, we look at things a little bit differently. We build ecosystems to be together. Like the perfect example now, Aleph Zero is nothing competitive to Interlock. In fact, it's quite the opposite. But this Twitter Spaces is exactly what we need to be doing, collaborating together to build better products into the future and unlock things that were unable to be unlocked in Web 2, and particularly giving people a reason to care about security, giving them incentives via something like a token, and then also using a community-driven network to help create security data and security information that normally would be siloed behind closed doors at enterprises. They're not going to share the data that they collect. They're not going to help other companies get better. But if you work together and help companies get better, you ultimately arrive at your initial goal, which is security, by essentially sharing certain pieces of what's coming together from your community, from your products, from your own solutions that have created data. You're helping not just yourself or the people on your network. You're also helping enterprises that utilize that sort of data and who purchase those same products, which ultimately helps the internet in the sense of those companies that those individual users are that we were talking about. Let's just use it. Let's use a concrete example of Facebook. If our products create data that Facebook buys, um, the users of Facebook are going to be more secure, all because one person used our product, created enterprise security data that was valuable to Facebook, and ultimately made Facebook more secure for that end user. Now, terrible example because we're in the Web3 space and we don't really care about Facebook, but concept remains.
And Raphael or Daniel, you guys want to ask Rick a
Yeah,
question as it relates to cyber?
yeah, of course. And actually, the answer that Rick just said was actually very, very good and brings a lot of clarity for us and also for the community. I have one more question actually. Um, how do you think Interlock will actually solve this problem? How do you believe you guys can solve this problem?
Yeah, so part of what I described was essentially a little bit of our own model, kind of hinting at it. But the idea is that we create cybersecurity products that keep users in Web3 and Web2 safe, but really with a focus on Web3. And every time people use our products, the ones we have launched now, like Bouncer and ThreatSlayer, they create a security data set that's private and anonymous. So basically, they are helping us discover bad websites, bad smart contracts, bad browser extensions, bad files, you name it. Every time they come across one of those things, we incentivize them by rewarding them potentially with some of our token, which hasn't been launched yet, but that's the whole idea and concept behind our products. That being said, what happens there is that security data is extremely valuable to pretty much every large enterprise you can think of. Fortune 500s in the US, uh, companies across the globe basically consume threat intelligence or security data in one form or another, either directly or indirectly. And what that means is that our products are creating a cycle of better security, not like I said, not just for us or our network, our users, but also companies and also the internet, because it kind of goes full circle. So how we're going to fix this is by building products that have that same community driven cycle built into them. Every product we build from here and on out will have that virtuous cycle built into it, meaning we're always aiming to not just improve security for our users or for the companies that buy our products, but for security of everyone, everywhere, because that data and that sort of growth in the security side will trickle down to everyone, regardless of whether you use our products or not, because it is a global thing.
Okay, thanks for that answer, Rick. It sounds like you guys have a pretty clear kind of pathway and idea of how you're going to solve those problems that you explained beforehand. But why is blockchain technology kind of critical for Interlock's products, and why is blockchain technology critical to help Interlock solve those problems?
Yeah, I'm going to pass this one a little bit over to Nick, actually, because I know Nick is here and he's listening and he's probably ready to fire it away. So Nick is a co-founder of Interlock, like Andrew said, a principal engineer, really behind all of the really intense work that we've done with token modeling and token design, as well as part of the blockchain stuff and building other products. Really has his hands in everything. And I want to pass it over to Nick to talk a little bit about what he feels like and explains why we're using blockchain outside of kind of what I mentioned with incentives.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, we can.
All right. Yeah, so I've always had very bad luck with Twitter Spaces and just meeting software in general. So as for blockchain, in theory, okay. So first of all, blockchain, it helps us incentivize people to use our extension in a decentralized way. And it's going to get, and we have ambitions to make the decentralization even more decentralized. Right now, there is some centralization in the sense that there is still software that has to run heuristics and so on. And there's really no way around that because blockchain technology currently is really not up to doing this in a fully decentralized way and in a fully private way, which is a big part of the reason why we chose Aleph Zero. And I'm sorry if I'm skipping ahead by a few questions, but I figured I might as well wrap all of this into one bundle. What's one of the reasons why we chose Aleph Zero? It's because you guys are building you're building the network with privacy in mind and with correctness in mind, and it basically no other blockchain, as far as I know, is doing this or not doing it seriously. So yeah, like that's the primary reason why we are. What is going on here? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I got distracted by some weird stuff. So yeah, that's why blockchain is essential, the incentivization and the decentralization. Obviously, you could incentivize without blockchain, but that means you're basically limited legally to geographies that allow this kind of stuff, that allow this kind of incentivization to happen, which basically reduces you to a kind of gift card business or whatever. So yeah, that's my very long-winded answer to that, but I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions. I know it was a lot to take in.
Yeah, and Nick, and just for a little context for listeners on the call, as originally we were building on Solana and decided to scrap it in favor of Aleph Zero. So Nick gave you a little bit of a technical perspective as it relates to why we chose Aleph Zero and why we're excited. Specifically, we're aligned on the privacy elements and how it's going to help us decentralize our technology. And Nick, I know sometimes you talk about how it, we're going to have the capability to have kind of cloak and disguise our heuristics. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So so we originally went with Solana. So we were aware of Solana and Aleph Zero from the very beginning. I personally very much liked Aleph Zero, but in 2020, Aleph Zero it didn't have support for smart contracts. It did have support for like private smart contracts. But ultimately, we chose to go with Solana because the business case for Aleph Zero was weak, even though the technological case for it was very strong. And I do recall saying in 2020 or 2021 that Aleph Zero has the potential to be the next Solana, to be Solana's Solana, to be to Solana what Solana was to Ethereum, essentially. So we've always liked it. We eventually decided to move over to Aleph Zero after Aleph Zero implemented smart contracts, which we kind of needed. And after we actually met the Aleph Zero team, and after meeting them, like we already had an idea that they were the kind of team that did things right rather than doing them fast. And this is critical for us because we're doing security, and so we had the idea that we had this hint, but it wasn't until we actually met them that we were like, oh, okay, like these guys, are actually really, really committed to this method of development. So yeah, that's why we chose Aleph Zero. But as for the cloaking of heuristics and stuff, so because heuristics are literally how we detect threats, we can't make them transparent, which because it would just set us at a permanent disadvantage. In fact, it would be such a devastating disadvantage that we would be better off without any heuristics at all. And just we would have to rely entirely on the security staking mechanism that we have planned, and it gets involved from there. But having private heuristics enable us to stay 1 or 2 or 50 steps ahead of the scammers and of other deceptive people on the internet. So there's a bit of a tension or a contradiction here between the decentrality of the aspirational decentrality of blockchain and the centrality and opacity of a central service or a central set of services that uses some weighted mechanism of determining whether or not a site is a threat. And we our ears perked up when we realized that with Aleph Zero and with Liminal in particular, that we could actually connect software that needs to be opaque to a transparent network, and in a way that allowed people and users of this network to verify that this opaque software is in fact doing what it's supposed to be doing without actually being able to snoop on what it's doing. So yeah, that's
Cool. Thanks for that summary, Nick. And just to summarize both Rick and or Nick's points is we chose them from a technical perspective for their abilities to allow us to have private and opaque means of delivering our heuristics and our threat detection. And overall, from a business perspective, fundamentally solid, strong, intelligent team that's always going to do the right thing. So we're really excited to build our products on there. And Rick, we have a two-phased approach here at Interlock of getting our products to market. Phase one is delivering and distributing free enterprise-grade security to end users across the globe in the form of a browser extension that lays the foundation for our overall project of giving people free cybersecurity technology that is made for large businesses that keeps you safe while you browse on the web. Those users will share anonymized security data and start sharing threat intelligence back with the network. That threat intelligence makes the entire network and product stronger. And then after we lay that foundation with consumer users, then we monetize in the enterprise of selling threat intelligence and the enterprise version of our security to large businesses. Rick, you want to give some insights into that two-pronged approach of what we're building on A0?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, you kind of already walked through exactly what it's going to do. So I don't have to recap much of that. But the way it works is that we need to make sure that we build a strong community around what we're gathering and around the data that we're gathering to make sure that when we launch all of our products and our opportunities that we go to enterprise, they have a strong backing with the data that we're looking at. And then as you kind of mentioned, but I'll jump into a little bit more, we also in the future will be building products that integrate directly into businesses and enterprises, things that you can essentially use as trust and safety tools to help secure the products you're building instead of just downloading data sets or using individual products. So it's essentially lending you a little bit of our threat detection AI to let you and your organization use it for whatever you see fit, whether that be maybe a social network that built on Web3 or a wallet that needs to scan the URLs that are happening in real time. So we have lots of opportunities to build into that. And then as we move into the future, one of our goals is to help one of the greatest goals I think of all people in Web3 is to try to understand institutional and enterprise adoption, right? How do we get crypto? How do we get Web3 into the top 50 companies in the world globally, and how do we get it in a sustainable method where they're not just creating a trading platform or something, they're using it day to day, they're transacting it, they're participating in the networks, they're even deploying their own versions of networks. And part of that is just simply breaking into that by having enterprises use products that are built on or use blockchain. So part of our goal, of course, as Andrew described, is to launch these enterprise products that incentivize companies to essentially not just utilize the data that we've created with blockchain, but to understand where it came from, how it's working, and then hopefully participate in the network themselves, being able to stake the token for things like discounts, or being able to participate in the network by improving our detection with our gray area entity staking, which is a bit different from just staking a token. Our gray area entity staking allows you to essentially say, hey, I think this is safe, or I think it's not safe. And as an individual, you get a reward for helping us do that determination. That's launching in the future. But at an enterprise scale, it could be a lot bigger. It could be thousands of people and thousands of services doing that every single day, which helps them, of course, but realistically, in the end, it helps us, and I mean that. It doesn't matter that, and it's an enterprise doing it. The feedback that they're giving on things and helping to improve our detection will improve security for everyone, and that's exactly, as I've said a million times at this point, the whole part of the community-driven aspect of this. It doesn't matter which end is creating the value or how the value is being created, and I don't mean value meaning money. I mean value in the sense of security information. It doesn't matter how it's created, it will be improved, and we'll all see the benefit from that.
Thanks, Rick. I have one more question though. Um, what's the reason behind launching security as a browser extension at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's extremely important, and a lot of people ask that question. So as things progress, we all do things in the cloud. So we'll start with that, right? We consider your browser your new OS. Half the time, most of the apps everyone in this room right now probably opens is in your browser. It's going to be an email client. It's going to be a chat client. It's going to be a customer relationship manager, a CRM. It's going to be a CMS for content management. It's going to be a healthcare portal. It doesn't really matter. Anything you're doing, whether it be personal or business, is really inside of your browser. So the most important vector to keep safe is your browser. And that's not even considering the Web3 aspect, where you have your wallet and you have your transactions in crypto. So the important part of that is to make sure that you understand, that this is a really it's a really important piece to secure. And not to mention, we also have data that is only accessible inside of the browser. When it comes to browsing the web, you're usually behind SSL. I would hope 99.97% of the time you are behind SSL. And that means that the data that you're gathering there is encrypted, unable to be established. And without one of the security tools existing inside of the browser, we don't have access to that data, which means we can't protect against novel threats related to phishing or attacks that could be doing something behind the scenes in your browser itself. So it's not just because it's an important place to keep secure, it's also because it is a place where we have access to data that no one else has, and no other way to get it. And that's exactly why we built inside the browser.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer, Rick. So how are ThreatSlayer users making the internet safer and making the product stronger?
I think I've covered a lot of that already, but basically, they're making the internet safer by browsing the web, doing their day-to-day stuff. It could be reading email. It could be on and off ramps for crypto. It could be exploring a new DeFi project. And every time they come across something that's malicious, in the sense of someone sent it to them on Telegram, they clicked the link on Twitter they shouldn't have, they opened a Reddit page, they opened an email. Anytime someone does that, that new URL that the person's seeing is being reported back to us. And we're able to add that to our list of things that is bad. And then, of course, like I mentioned, the person's incentivized with our token for discovering that. And it's completely passive. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to click anything. They don't have to flag anything. And that will essentially, improve security for everyone by sharing that data. And that's kind of how the whole system works.
Right. So essentially, the users are making the internet safer and the product stronger simply by just using the product.
Exactly.
That's
We
that's
made it
awesome.
that way. No touch. We don't want you to feel bothered. We don't
That's
feel like
that's fantastic.
your work is harder. That's not the plan.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick.
Of course.
And Rick, I know you mentioned that mainly the product is passive, and kind of like cybersecurity tools like this are kind of like insurance. Like you're not going to need it 99% of the time, but if it can help you avert that 1% crisis of losing your wallet, getting your crypto and NFTs drained, that's what it's really here for. And Rick, can you give some insights into how it's different from similar security tools? Because I know on the front end, like we mentioned, it's mostly a passive product. What does it look like on the back end in threat detection, and how we're identifying threats, and why it's different compared to similar tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So, realistically, the approach that we have taken, and Nick talked a little bit about it too, but the approach that we have taken is our detection methodology that relies on real-time scanning. So we determine as you are visiting something whether it's good or bad. And that may sound like, well, duh, no brainer. However, pretty much every other security tool you can think of relies on lists, relies on threat intelligence, and previously determined things to decide whether or not you should be protected from the site you're visiting or whatever it may be, which means that it's old. It's old data. It's things that have seen before. Someone's reported it. Someone's come across it. It's been in an email. It hit a security tool. It got sent over to a SOC, and then which is a security operations center, and they decided it was malicious, and then fed that data back to the product. That's a long process. Even Google Safe Browsing, which people consider to be a pretty good web protection tool, is still days behind. And if you can't already guess, that is clearly not good if someone's sending you a novel threat, or even worse, targeting you. If you have 3 Bored Apes and your wallet says you have 4,000 ETH, well, you're a target. And if they're trying to get you, they're not going to send the same email they sent to 20 other people to see, like, oh, is he going to fall for this one? Or is he going to click this link? It's going to be something novel created for you, which means it won't be on that threat list. It won't be in a security tool that can protect you. It won't be on Google. They won't know about it. So you need a product that's proactive and scans in real time to determine whether or not something is malicious or not. And that's exactly the approach we have taken to prevent threats like that. And that will expand in the future to smart contracts, being able to understand whether or not you're interacting with the right smart contract. It will be able to determine whether or not files you're downloading, and you can already do this, but determine whether the file you're downloading or not could be malicious, and whether you should be interacting with it. And again, that all happens in real time in the background without your input or without your action. And that's what separates us apart from pretty much anyone else. And like we talked about before, the cool part of what we do when I talk about how do individuals make security better? Well, that data that we're talking about creating when someone visits a site and reports it back to us, that has to go back to those security tools. The same ones I just said are not up to speed. They still need that data. We're going to be creating a data set for them that pretty much is better than anyone else that they've seen, because our data set comes directly from the people who are online being attacked every single day, versus a scanner or versus someone trying to find something with a honeypot. And without getting into too nitty gritty, because you can tell I get excited about this, that's what separates us from pretty much everyone else.
Cool. And just so everyone knows, Threat Slayer was just launched in the Chrome store in our beta version, so it gives you the full protection that Rick mentioned. If you want to grab it, click the link in our bio. It's on our site. It takes 1 click to install, and you start getting protected instantly. I know Daniel and Raphael, I think you guys had some questions, more questions for Rick. Why don't you shoot away?
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, we do have a few more questions, and I believe we have the same questions as some of the community members also have right now. And yeah, basically, how will Interlock promote enterprise adoption, and also how you guys will generate revenue?
Yeah, so as far as promoting enterprise adoption, kind of like what I mentioned before, we're actually aiming to get people, especially companies, to either use crypto directly or stake crypto for a discount. So basically they can, be part of the ecosystem while purchasing our tools. And if they stake it, they're going to get enterprise products at a cheaper price. And then that exactly leads into what we're doing as far as the revenue generation side. The biggest thing there is going to come from that threat intelligence, which thankfully I just talked about, so I don't have to re-explain it to you. But essentially, it's that data that we create from our individual users, private and anonymous. I don't care that it's you browsing to the cookware website or Amazon. I don't care even that it's you browsing to the malicious website. What I care about is the malicious website, the URL, the metadata associated, where it came from, the on and off ramps from it. And that important information is what we sell to enterprises. We also will sell an enterprise version of ThreatSlayer that has policy control, individual control to see data from your internal organization, and protection that goes a little bit above and beyond, like being able to proactively block things by policy instead of just proactively blocking them with scanning. And then we also, like I mentioned, will sell Autocrat, which is our API that allows people to utilize that same real-time detection inside their own applications, which of course means that if you are a Web3 project building, or a Web2 project, doesn't really matter, but if you're building a tool and you want to understand whether or not what your users are interacting with is safe or not from a URL perspective, you can embed Autocrat into it as an API, and it will do that analysis for you. And then you just need to use the outcome how you see fit.
Right. Thanks for that one, Rick. So what can the Aleph Zero community expect from Interlock in terms of the launch?
Oh yeah, it's going to be real exciting. So, we're constantly working on getting everything ready with our own token and with launching all of our products on the Aleph Zero network. I am happy to say that a lot of the smart contract work is already all complete. We essentially are waiting to button up a few things. I would say we're like 85, 90% there. There's a few things we're waiting on to ready to button that up. And then it's going to go to a very stringent audit to make sure, as a security company, we eat our own dog food and we stay very secure with what we're doing, and all the interactions people have with our smart contracts are secure. And then once that's all ready, we plan to do a community sale of our token before the launch of the actual token. And it's to be determined where the token will launch, how the community sale will happen, how the whitelisting is going to happen. I know Andrew and I are going to be setting up a new whitelist sign up for people. So if they're interested, obviously jot that down. We will get something out pretty soon here. But it's going to be a really awesome time for not just us, but also the community, because people are going to be able to get the token. People are going to be able to use the products. People are going to be able to see it in action. And then also a lot of the data we're collecting, we're going to give an aggregate view of it. So we're going to be able to tell you, this is how many URLs we've scanned this month. This is how many things we've seen this month. This is how many users are generating data for the network, which is cool to look at and watch the numbers tick up and see all of that. But the real purpose of that is to show how it works. You're showing everyone, hey, this is how things are happening. This is how they work. And that, of course, I'm sad to say it, but sets us apart from crypto projects in a lot of ways, because we're transparent about how things are working and how quickly they're growing. Whereas some projects are still trying to get on their feet. There's nothing wrong with that, but just want to say, hey, we've done a lot. This is how it's working. Come take a look transparently and openly.
And one additional thing that we're going to be doing for the A0 community and the project in general is we're going to be issuing utility NFTs for our Discord security bot Bouncer. Now, we didn't really mention it before, but Bouncer is like the Discord version of ThreatSlayer, and Bouncer automatically scans links in public Discord channels and it strips out the bad ones, removes the bad ones. So it keeps community safe from phishing links, fake NFT sites, etc. We're going to be issuing Bouncer NFTs on Aleph Zero that give lifetime access to our Discord security bot. The artwork for that is done. If you check out the pinned message on our Interlock profile, you can meet Bouncer. He's that fierce yet friendly bot that protects Discord communities globally. About 50,000 members are protected across numerous communities. So we're excited to get utility NFTs on the A0 network in tandem with the launch, and we're going to be doing special versions for the A0 community, and happy to have all you guys and gals on board here.
Yeah, that'll be awesome too.
Awesome. If anyone has any specific questions about Interlock, the partnership with Aleph Zero, raise your hand and I'll let you guys chime in. I see a lot of listeners that have been on here for the whole call. Captain, you want to say hello? Actually, Daniel, Rafa, you guys want to jump in with any questions from your community?
I don't think I've collected any specifically about Interlock. I mean, we only just announced that partnership, yesterday. So yeah, don't have any at the moment off the top of my head, but yeah, all of you listeners in here, feel free to ask us any questions about, the relationship between Aleph Zero and Interlock, or just Interlock itself or Aleph Zero itself.
Yeah, and I know in your community, I was checking out last night. Someone in your general chat was asking, is our browser extension safe to download? Rick or Nick, you want to give some insights into how our code is open source and what that publication process looks like in getting the extension verified through the Google Chrome store?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it. Unless Nick wants to, but I'll take it. Basically, our extension, first off, all of the code is outside of our heuristics, which Nick already explained. The heuristics have to be hidden, but heuristics have nothing to do with your data or what it's doing to your computer or being in your browser. Heuristics are how we determine the safety of a site. So at that point, all the data we need is related to the URL, nothing to do with you, not your cookies, nothing in your browser, nothing at all at that point. But everything else, as far as ThreadSlayer goes, and Bouncer and Autocrat, are all public on our GitHub. So I think it's github.com/Interlock Network, I believe. Don't quote me on that. You might have to search for it, but I know it's Interlock Network on GitHub. And once you get there, you can browse around and see pretty much all of the work that we've done, including Nick's awesome token models, which if you're not super advanced, maybe don't. But if you want to see our predictions and our runs for what the token's going to do in the future, definitely take a look at that. But neither here nor there. Going back to ThreadSlayer, that code is public and available. You can review every piece of it, which means if you can, anyone can. And if you don't have the skill set to do it, we encourage you to send it to other people who you do know, developers who say may have the access to understanding whether or not the code is secure and what it's doing to your browser. But you're more than welcome to take a look at it completely and openly, which is part of our ethos. Everything we do needs to be transparent to our community and to our users. And then the buck doesn't even stop there. Once we have it completed, once we feel like ThreadSlayer's newest version, 0.2 or 0.3 is complete, we have to submit it to Google to get uploaded to the Chrome store. And Chrome store has a relatively rigorous checkpoint for code review, text review, scams, anything that could be potentially deceptive to the user and the code. So things where it might be tricking you to do sending us money or something like that, those were all, or anyone, not us, of course, but anyone who were to do something like that, that'd get stripped out completely. Google would block it, ban it, reject it. Anything in the code that is obfuscated, minimized, not completely obvious, Google will reject it and tell you either you need to unminimize it, fix it, whatever it may be. Now, they're not doing 20 hours of code review per line of code, but they're actually way more impressive than you might expect for such a big company. In fact, what was it? Yesterday, we updated the language on our page and made it a little bit prettier on the landing page for ThreadSlayer. We wanted to make sure that you guys understood what ThreadSlayer looked like. So we added some images. We changed up the text a little bit to make it look a little bit better. And that's just on the Chrome store landing page. And that went through something like a 27-hour review. And all it was just a few lines of text. And it wasn't just because it's backlog. It's because they analyze every single thing that happens and they don't let changes occur. So twofold there. One, everything's secure and you should feel confident in downloading it. But secondarily, that sort of level of protection also prevents someone from jumping in later. Because I get a lot of questions about what if Interlock gets compromised? What if our network gets compromised itself and someone else publishes a bad extension? There's already, let's say we have 1 million users at that time and someone publishes a bad extension. Now 1 million users are going to have it. Doesn't work that way. Google would block it. Google would see any code changes. Google would prevent anything from being published, and therefore everyone would be safe. And that's a great reason why we use stores like that on top of the code review, the security that we input as well.
Cool. Russ, I added you as a speaker if you'd like to ask your question.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen. This threats layer currently only supports Google Chrome, or do you have plans in supporting other browser?
Right now, it's Chrome and all Chromium browsers, which means you can install it on Edge, you can install it on Brave, you can install it on Chrome, and anything else that's based on Chromium. In the future, we will also support Firefox, and that's really the only outlier outside of Safari. Safari is a weird, different beast, and I'm not sure if anything's changed recently, but in the past, extensions have been really hard on Safari. So at the moment, we support the Chromium-based browsers, soon Firefox, and then later down the road, Safari. And I know this question will come up because people always ask it, so I'll say it right now. Currently, no support for mobile. We're working on a solution for that, doing our best.
Great. Thank you.
Of course.
Cool. If anyone else has some questions and wants to speak in, raise your hand. I'll add you as a speaker. But in general, I think we covered the majority of how we're using Aleph Zero to create a safer internet. We went over the problem solution set in Web 2 and Web 3, which is there's tons of spend on security, but the internet needs a collaborative model to make that possible. And that's what we're doing exactly on Aleph Zero. So really excited to have you all on board for our journey of giving enterprise-grade security for everyone and create a safer internet. And just as a reminder, if you haven't downloaded our browser extension, please do so. You can add it for free in one click. You can search for Threats Layer in Chrome or click the button on our website that I just added a few days ago. And really excited to have you all on board. And as always, we'll keep you up to date with the latest project updates. Check our Telegram, check our Discord for the latest updates, and ask any questions that you have. We like to keep it open, transparent, and honest. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us, and we will give you the latest project, token, NFT product updates. So anyone else has any questions, raise your hand. I'm going to leave this open for a minute or two. If not, we'll get the call wrapped up. And Daniel and Raphael, thanks so much for joining and your community to join. Really excited to be partnering with the A0 community.
That was no problem at all. It was our pleasure to be here to, introduce Interlock to our community, just chat with you guys, and looking forward to doing more of these in future.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I share the same words as Daniel. We are also very excited to see what's next for Interlock and how they're gonna solve a lot of the issues in this space. So yeah, we were very happy to be here today, and yeah, thank you everyone.
Cool. Yeah, and towards the end of this week, so either tomorrow or Saturday, be on the lookout for an update on community sale and whitelist details. I know we get those questions all the time in both of our communities. We'll be publishing those later this week. Total allocation size, how to enter, all those great things. So thank you all for joining, and thank you for being part of our community, the Aleph Zero community. You all enjoy your day, night,
Thanks,
evening,
everybody.
morning.
Thanks
so much.
guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care.